The term misogynoir holds space for the unique intersection of racism and misogyny, where Black women often find themselves. At its core, it examines the impact of negative narratives and imagery that it has on us from day to day. Throughout its 50 years, hip-hop's relationship with Black women has presented bold depictions of empowerment alongside those that degrade and objectify. However, today's mainstream hip-hop voices appear to be presenting a new era of female artistry that puts sexuality front and center. This has sparked intense dialogue about whether or not the lyrics and the presentations exploit or empower Black women. And what, if any, influence does this have on how Black women are treated in society at large? In tonight's Be Heard Town Hall, we are asking if the bold sexuality in today's era of hip-hop is breaking Black women free from the shackles of respectability politics, or is it fueling misogynoir? We have an esteemed panel to help us unpack this, y'all. And opening remarks will be by the Commissioner of Cultural Affairs for New York City, Lori Kumble, coming up right after this.
Welcome to BRIC House. I am Commissioner Lori Kumble, and I'm so excited to greet all of you here today. And I see a lot of sistren energy in here today, and that's what this conversation is all about. It's our opportunity to discuss the future of hip-hop, where it's been, where it's at, and where it's going. And this is such a critical conversation on so many levels. With the recent unfortunate dynamics that have been playing out in social media and on our television airways as of just recent, it's important that we have this long overdue conversation tonight. I'm a graduate of Spelman College, class of 1997, and I remember when going to Atlanta, Georgia, how proud I felt to go to this Black woman college and how excited I was to experience what I had seen on A Different World and The Cosby Show and everything that was being discussed. I was excited to go to my first Freaknik. That was going to be the big thing. You were going to get to go to Freaknik. And then when I got down there was so much discussion in terms of what Freaknik was going to be like. And at that time, Luke and Too Short and Two Live Crew, all of those groups were really hot at that time. And we found ourselves as Black women in Spelman College singing the lyrics to so many of those songs. Hey, now, right? We were singing that, and right? We were singing that, but something didn't sit quite right about being a Black woman in Atlanta, Georgia, at a time when we were singing these lyrics, when we were in the middle of a dance floor, and the harder we could do the dance, the more people yelled and cheered. And we didn't think anything was wrong with it, really, but something didn't sit right. And that's what this conversation is about on so many levels, because at that time, we were so young, we were so impressionable, and what we were kind of steered towards understanding at that time was, if you're not a eh or a eh, then it doesn't apply to you. That's those women, that's not you. But fast forward 25 years later, you can't make the distinction between that's these women and not these women. It's all women. And we have to understand that we are all one. Not one deserves to be called this or that. Because as we're seeing as it comes to light today, the implications behind all of that. And it's so serious that now, as Dr. Maya Angelou always said, when you know better, do better. And now that we are the generation that came up through the hip-hop movement, it's our time now to do better. It's our time now to understand the magical power of hip-hop, how it impacts us, how it shapes the world, how it shapes how people see us, and how we see ourselves. We can no longer deny or say that it applies to some and not to others. It applies to all of us. So I'm proud to be the commissioner of the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, to be a part of this conversation, to be able to move this conversation forward, because on so many levels, with each circumstance that you see, from R. Kelly, I remember when I was growing up, going to so many graduations with so many of our children believing they could fly because they heard R. Kelly's song. I went to Spelman College because of Bill Cosby and wanting to be that Huxtable family. And even today with Puffy, I was so excited to know of this Howard student who was going and doing concerts and living and being in a space bigger than most of us as African Americans could ever dream of at that time. And so now we have to grapple with our own identity, because our identities were tied to their identities. And it's important that we remember that we are tied coming out of the generation of Malcolm X, of Assata Shakur, of all of these great leaders, James Baldwin, Shirley Chisholm, and we as a people have to stay connected to that movement so that we can have a compass to lead our young people. So I'm going to turn it over to these incredible panelists. They are from the hip-hop community. They have been creators of the hip-hop community. They are writers, they are politicians, they are journalists. They have something very important to share with each and every one of you. And I look forward to doing just as Dr. Maya Angelou says, when you know better, do better. And we are going to shape the next generation, because we didn't know then what we know now, and we need to take our generations forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Cumbo, for bringing your Black girl magic and sparkling it all over the place. Talking about Black girl magic, we're going to have a lot of that going on here today. And right now, I'm going to show you guys a video, a poem called Black Girl Magic by poet Mahogany Brown, who performed this at our Resistorhood Be Heard conference back in 2017. Let's watch Mahogany Brown.
They say you ain't supposed to be here, Black girl. You ain't supposed to wear red lipstick. You ain't supposed to wear high heels. You ain't supposed to smile in public. You ain't supposed to smile nowhere, Black girl. You ain't supposed to be no more than a girlfriend. You ain't supposed to get married. You ain't supposed to want no dream that big. You ain't supposed to dream at all. You ain't supposed to do nothing but carry babies and carry felons and carry weaves and carry silence, and carry families, and carry confusion, and carry a nation, but never an opinion. Because you ain't supposed to have nothing to say, Black girl, not unless it's a joke. Because you ain't supposed to love yourself, Black girl. You ain't supposed to find nothing worth saving in all that brown. You ain't supposed to know that Tina, Beyonce, Cecily, Shonda, Rhymes, shine, 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 Black girl. You ain't supposed to love your mind. You ain't supposed to love. You ain't supposed to be loved up on. You only supposed to pose voodoo child, vixen style. You're supposed to pop out babies and hide the stretch marks. You're supposed to be still. So still they think you statue. So still they think you chalked outline. So still they keep thinking you stone. Until you look more Medusa than Viola Davis. Until you sound more Shanae than Kerry Washington. Until you're more side-eyed than Michelle Obama on a Tuesday, but you tell them you are more than a hot comb in a washing set. You are Kunta Kinte's kin. You are a Black girl worth remembering, and you are a threat. Knowing yourself, you are a threat. Loving yourself, you are a threat. Loving your kin, you are a threat. Loving your children, you Black girl magic, you Black girl fly, you Black girl branch, you Black girl wonder, you Black girl shine, you Black girl bloom, you Black girl, and you turning into a beautiful Black woman right before our eyes.
That's right. Give it up for Mahogany Brown. What an amazing talent we have. Black Girl Magic is all in this place. When you guys came in, you received question and answer cards. So we want you guys throughout the program to write down your questions, some of your comments, and don't worry if you're at home watching this, streaming it on your YouTube. Write your questions in the comment section. We're gonna be checking that, and then later on, you see either one of these, the producers will bring you down and you can ask your question, and we'll try and get to them as much as possible. We also want to thank our tabling sponsors, Ladies of Hip Hop. And also the Brooklyn Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And now, what you're all here for. You're here to hear these beautiful ladies, and we're about to introduce this illustrious panel. First, we will start with Even Ane. Amen, there you go. An award-winning, internationally recognized journalist, writer, editor, critic, and on-air host covering all kinds of culture. Her writing has been published in the New York Times, Teen Vogue, Vanity Fair, Vibe magazine, and the list goes on and on and on because she is all that in a bag of chips, as we used to say. So clap for our girl. Next we have Councilwoman Farah N. Lewis. Farah N. Lewis proudly serves as a representative for the vibrant 45th Council District of Brooklyn, New York, and was recently appointed as chair of the Committee on Women and Gender Equity. Come on, that's good work, y'all. Clap for our sister. And she needs no introduction because she's the queen of it all. Let's shout out our beloved, iconic sister, Roxanne Shante. Give it up. Honor where honor is due. Roxanne Shante is the first female rapper to have a hit record on the charts. That's right. That's right. She's the only female member of the hip-hop collective, The Juice Crew, and was involved in the two earliest recognized beefs in hip-hop on wax. The Roxanne trilogies, the Roxanne Wars, it was a bunch of them, about 100 of them. And also the Bridge Wars, the Bridge and South Bronx Wars. Shout out to the queen, Roxanne Shante. We go from one queen to another, Ambassador Toni Blackman. She's an artist, a visionary, creator, co-host of lyrical meditation cipher podcast. Toni has served as the keynote for Warner Music's Social Justice Summit, and her hip-hop meditation music series, y'all, is fire, is supported by the New York State Council of the Arts. And she just got back into the country because she always booked and busy. Hey, Toni. Last but certainly not least is Stacey Bart. Stacey Bart is a Grammy Award-winning singer, songwriter, artist. Her pen game ain't nothing to be played with, y'all. Let's just throw out the names. She's written for Rihanna, Tiana Taylor, Alicia Keys, and Brown Skin Girl. That's right, she gave us an anthem with Beyonce. And while y'all know her pen game, y'all also know her voice because she is the angelic voice on Victory Lap from the late, great Nipsey Hussle. So we give you honor. But before we get into this good discussion, and it's gonna be a great discussion, we wanna break down what the term misogynoir actually is. So we're going to have a quick little video from the person who coined the term, Moya Bailey. So I ask you guys to direct yourselves to the screen and check out this video.
Hi, my name is Dr. Moya Bailey, and I'm going to break down the term misogynoir. So what is misogynoir? Misogynoir is a term I coined in 2008 to describe and better explain what I was noticing around the representation of Black women and gender-expansive people in the media, in particular, social media. The representations of Black women and gender-expansive people that I witnessed was limited and negative. It was anti-Black, racist, and sexist, and an outright hatred of Black women and girls. It was so rampant that I coined the term misogynoir to address it. I defined misogynoir as the anti-Black racist misogyny that Black women and people read as Black women experience. They inform ideas that we have about Black women, especially dark-skinned Black women. These characters suggest that dark-skinned Black women are unattractive, loud, unlovable, and over the top. Misogynoir shows up everywhere, in our lives, our families, communities, and broader society. So we must all commit to defeating it. But how do we do that? We do so by tapping into Black feminisms, by uplifting whole and healthy representations of Black women, girls, and gender-expansive folks, and by interrupting moments in our lives where we see misogynoir showing up. It requires the transformation of all of us, that we be different and transform our hatred of Black women, girls, and gender-expansive people into respect, resources, and power.
And we thank our scholar for creating that for us. That's for us. Y'all, tonight is going to be heavy. There's going to be a lot of things going on, some comments, and it might trigger you. But this is a safe space for sisters to be sisters. Is that all right? Want to get permission, if that's all right, for us to be honest with each other about the state of hip-hop. And if we're going to be honest, let's talk about hip-hop and the state of hip-hop and how it's grown. Let's go back to when you first encountered the culture. And what was hip-hop like back then compared to now in one word? Oh yeah, we getting hard. One word, if you can think about it. I'll start with Evie.
How would I describe hip-hop in the past in one word? Well, I grew up in the early 2000s, so I definitely missed a lot. But I do remember the late 90s because the first song I ever remember hearing on the radio was Fugees' Ready or Not. And I think it was out for maybe like a year or two. And that was the first song I remember hearing. First song, regardless of genre. And it was a hip-hop song. So when I was growing up, I looked at hip-hop as just music. Because to me, I didn't know a world without hip-hop because I came into this world when it was already a multi-million-dollar industry. So I would say that if I could think of a word to describe hip-hop in my past, it would be all-encompassing.
Thank you. We're celebrating folk today. Shantae.
If I had to sum it up, I would say fearless. I came into hip-hop at a time where there was no set schedule to follow. There was no blueprint. There weren't artists that you knew were going to be successful. I came at a time when they said that hip-hop actually had an expiration date. They said that hip-hop was not going to be around for more than 10 years, try to get everything you could out of it. Hip-hop was a genre of music that you actually were told that you had to outgrow in order to become a responsible adult, in order to be successful, in order to get a good job, in order to be able to do all these great things. You first had to outgrow hip-hop. And I think that was at a time where, you know, even when people would go to their jobs, you know, they would play hip hop all the way until they got to the parking lot of their job. And then they'd switch to jazz or switch to R&B because they didn't want anyone to know that that was the type of music that motivated them in the morning. So for me, I came in hip hop at a time where it's fearless, and it was going through a lot because it was battling the crack era and drugs was getting ready to come, and so there was so much, and I don't want to like just drift off into another part of this conversation, but overall, I'd have to say that I came into a time, since I couldn't use just the word beautiful because that was my first choice, was to say beautiful, but I needed to give a little more of an explanation, so I needed to say fearless.
Thank you very much. Stacey, jump on in.
If I had to use one word, because fearless is a great way to put it, but I would say unapologetic.
Yes.
And it told stories of, you know, where everybody was coming from. It was like the hip hop diaries. It was like, that was how post like the 70s and the disco era came this era of hip hop. It was poetry on beat, you know? So people got to tell their stories, and that's how I fell in love with hip hop. It was very unapologetic. I remember trying to recite, like I had to write down the lyric of what they were saying, because I'm like, damn, this is so crazy. I'm like, I'm literally in the 4th grade, like, and when I'm looking back, I'm like, they were a little crazy, the lyrics. I'm like, Biggie Warning, I'm like, why do I want to know these words so bad? Because he was telling a story. It's a form of storytelling that's just like, it's evolved to some other place, but regardless of what it is, it's still, and today, unapologetic.
Unapologetic. Tony,
Yay.
I know you got a word.
I have 10 words.
You're a woman of words.
One word, I would say it is culture. For me, the word is culture, because as we grew up, I remember I had one person in my family, my uncle, is like, you know, dissing, whatever, but everyone else got it. Even my grandparents got it. Like, my grandparents used to play the blues and Mahalia Jackson, and they was like, yeah, that's sure they got it. We would go to breakdance battles. We would go to the rap battles. When I had my group, the Fresh Girls.
The Fresh Girls.
Like, we took it so seriously. Mm-hmm. Like, it was a part of life. It was fun. It fed us. We used it for good. Mm-hmm. And it was about family. It was about connection. And it really was it was like a literal part of who we were. Mm-hmm. Yes. Culture. It wasn't separate from us. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you. Culture. Councilwoman?
I would say it was revolutionary. Mm-hmm. I remember the first hip hop song that I heard that I was allowed to listen to, because my parents were very strict, was Queen Latifah, UNITY. Wow. And actually, my older sister, who comes from Roxanne's generation, you were like her favorite rapper growing up. She got to listen to you, but I didn't get to listen to anything. But Queen Latifah was revolutionary for me. And from Queen Latifah, then it was MC Lyte, and then it was Lauryn Hill. They didn't have to objectify themselves. They were able to tell their stories as women, empower other women, talk about issues that are happening around them and around the world and in hip hop. And it revolutionized the space for women like them.
Yes.
If I had a word, I would say fellowship. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because I think it kind of embodies all of the words. Because I don't remember a time when there wasn't hip hop. Though I'm 50 and I remember it wasn't hip hop. I remember sneaking. I remember sneaking to hear it, sneaking to go outside to see it. Yeah. Like, we hear it now, but I used to see it. The way you dress, you just knew. So it really was fellowship, because I found people that were like me.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. The next question is kind of piggybacking off of that. Maybe the first question led up to this. Did it get worse? Did it stay the same? Or is it better? In your opinion, hip hop right now. Did it get worse? Did it stay the same? Or is it better? Let's start on this side. Councilwoman?
I would say it got worse. I don't know if everybody agrees with that. I don't see hip hop the way it used to be. And my colleague here mentioned culture. The culture has shifted. Mm-hmm. And I think about, and I'm sorry to call out names, but I think about someone like Megan Thee Stallion, who I really, really like and really, really love. But I think about the brand that has to be created for Megan Thee Stallion to be who she is. And is that real hip hop, or is it something else? Is it the new hip hop, or is it something else? So I think it's changed in many ways. And one of those things is looking at someone like Megan, looking at someone like Cardi B, who I think are completely talented women, but is it like real hip hop? Is it authentic hip hop like we normally used to see?
I hear you responding, Stacey.
I'm like,
Jump on in, Stacey. Jump on in.
I agree, and I agree and disagree, because there's been, like, you know, it's been an evolution. You know what I mean? From the hip hop, the hip to the hip, like, you know, every generation kind of evolved. You know what I mean? And became, I don't know, I wouldn't say better, but just fit the time. You know what I'm saying? Now there's a devolution, you know, in the music, because I said evolution, but I say devil. It's a lot of, like I said, devolution in the music. I think today, especially with the algorithms and the numbers and you just can't tell what's what anymore. You know what I mean? I think we've gotten so desensitized as just a society, like we just let anything in. I remember a time when you had to really be talented. Like, you wasn't getting on nobody's internet, nobody's TV without, like, you know what I mean? Now, you can go viral, you know what I mean? And if you caught a viral disease, you dying. So, I don't know. You know, I'm a word person, so these things that we want to do, like go viral, like, damn, if you caught a viral disease, you would really be like, not okay. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I'm just, you know, but then we have some great people. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of distractions in it. I think it's, the females are just over-sexualized, like you said, with Queen Latifah and Lauryn Hill, Salt and Pepper, even though they were spicy, but you know, they still kept it sophisticated. You know what I mean? And then the other shit was like late night. That's when you got to see it. It was like BET Uncut. Now it's like BET Uncut every day, all day. You know what I mean? And it's, you know, again, things are evolving. So I don't want to sound like the non-Gen Zer. Like, I get it, you know, the internet and stuff, but it was a time when you had to be really excellent, you know, to really get to that level. Now, you know, you go on TikTok, you might get a viral hit, and here we go.
Evie, I want to jump to you because you're the baby of the bunch.
Right, tell us about you.
I don't want to be diplomatic, but I wouldn't say that hip hop has regressed. I would say that it has changed, and I feel that the only constant that we have seen with hip hop is that it continuously changes. And I think that is the greatest signifier to longevity, is if you change and adapt. So I think it's a good thing that hip hop is constantly changing, and it has to go through these ebbs and flows of being here and then being here and here and then here and then here, because at least it's getting to this point. At least it's going somewhere. At least it's going forward. And if it's not going forward, at least it's going left, right, a different direction. You know what I mean? A different direction is better than backwards. And there's a quote from this scholar that I love named Stuart Hall, and I always used to quote this, and he once said that identity is always in the process of being and becoming. And I feel like hip hop is an identity as much as it is a culture. And it's always in the process of being and becoming. And we might not like it during one of those phases, but I think it's still gonna be here and change, so that, you know, in 10, 15 years, 20 years from now, we might like it again. But we're still gonna be paying attention.
I didn't like it too. Like, just to, you know what I mean, clarify. I didn't say I didn't like it. I just said it's definitely different from what I, you know, grew up being inspired by.
Same. It is very different, and sometimes it's very unenthusing, disenchanting. It's not as inspiring a lot of the times, but there's still moments where I do feel inspired, and I feel like there's people who have talent who are, you know, hearkening back to a certain era that we know from all of these different generations. I feel like there's a couple people every now and then who come forward and have that essence.
I like that. I like that. We love the language. Things are changing. I love that you said hip hop is an identity as well as a culture, right? So that's interesting language to kind of grab. Tony, you want to jump in? Is hip hop the same? Is it better or worse?
Well, I think worse is a strong word, but I think we have to be authentic and we have to keep it real, right? And so there was a time where we looked to hip hop for guidance and for leadership. That is not the time right now. Right? And we are at a critical stage where we need it. We need it. Yet we can't seek it from some of the popular artists. Even the popular artists who are spitting substance don't necessarily have the courage to speak up and to honor their voices, or they don't have the skill. because one of the things I do, my side hustle, which is a full hustle, is communication coaching. And you can tell when people speak. I can when they're uncomfortable. I can tell when they're withholding. I can tell when they're hesitant because they don't have the courage, because they don't know who's gonna come for them on social media. Right? And I've also been privy to green room conversations at conferences and panels. I've heard truths. And then people come out and they don't share those. And so where we are right now with hip hop, we are in a dangerous position. It is dangerous because a lot of youth don't know which way to turn. They don't know who to listen to. They're not reading books anymore. Right? I don't know, adults, let me not put that on you. Grown folks ain't reading either, right? And so then what happens as the years go by is that we get, dumb is a harsh word. But what's the word? We get less intelligent. We're less intelligent, we're less well-read, we're less informed, we're less knowledgeable. But when I remember coming up in hip hop, you didn't have to go to college to read Nikki Giovanni. Remember? You didn't have to go to college to understand the Quran, the Bible, and what's happening in Iraq. I remember MCs working for Verizon or the postal service worker who would come to a cipher and could spit about what Reagan, or not Reagan, I'm not that old, but whoever was in one of the Bushes.
You done gave it up.
No, somebody being like, Tony, what you know about Reagan? No, but when one of the Bushes was in, and they could break the whole thing down, that does not happen now. And part of the reason it happened was because of hip hop. Because it was cool to have certain kind of conversations. And you could be gangsta and be smart. And where does that come? I don't even think that has something to do with hip hop though.
But I like what you said about courage and leadership, right? And I think of courage, and I think about Shantae's generation. Shantae was 14, 15. And they were courageously walking up and saying what they needed to say. LL was a teenager. Chuck and them were 19, teenagers. Shantae, what do you think about the culture? Is it better, worse, or probably the same?
Now, this is probably going to be surprising to a lot of people. And honestly, Roxanne Shantae has always been Roxanne Shantae. So I'm going to only say how I feel and what it is to me. That's what I speak about. I speak about the things I know, the things I experienced. Everybody else's experiences, I sit back, I learn from them. I can appreciate their experiences. But for Roxanne Shantae, it has gotten better. Now, let me explain to you why it has gotten better. For Roxanne Shantae. The reason why I feel that hip hop has gotten better and is in a better place now is because the female MC controls her destiny at this point. She controls her business. Now we have more MCs that understand the importance of having a lawyer, having an attorney, going over their contracts, being independent, not depending on these large labels, not being a slave to these large labels. And also when it comes to the consumer, when it comes to the person that's able to listen to hip hop, you now have so many platforms for whatever type of hip hop that you want to listen to. There is a platform, a place, and a performer that you can go and see. And we didn't always have that. See, we were force-fed, especially and there was a downtime in hip hop where we didn't have this type of control, where you didn't have it at your fingertips, where all you had, it was right there in your face. So whatever it was that you saw, whatever they put out there, whoever paid the most for their video to be played, that is what you were subjected to. And that, to me, was the worst time in hip hop ever. The time when the video girl, when the video vixen was the most important hip hop female during that time. Where people knew more about who had a body than who had bars.
I mean, that's kind of what's going on now, too.
Bars.
So now when I look at how hip hop is today, for instance, I'm on a radio show, shameless plug, I'm on a radio show every day, LL Cool J's Rock the Bells Radio, where if that is what you want to listen to, if you want to listen to the classics, if you want to hear the stories from back in the day, if you want to go back into the 80s and you want to go back into the 90s and the early 2000s and you want to laugh, you want to giggle, there's a station for that. But then you have Hip Hop Nation. So therefore, if you want to hear what is the hottest hip hop now in the nation, then you'll go to that station. So for me, like right now is an excellent time for entrepreneurs. You can go in your house, come up with a term, put it on a t-shirt, go outside and you can sell it. That wasn't always there for us. And you know that wasn't like there for us during that time. And being able to say, okay, well look, if they don't want to let us be in this venue and they're locking down all these venues, people are now doing it from their stoop.
Yeah.
People are now doing it from in front of their house. People are having go to the barbecues, go to the bar. So for me, today, right now, is a great time in hip hop. And Lauryn Hill still got the #1 album.
And Lord, come on now. Ooh la la la.
Okay.
It is an exciting time. It is an exciting time. And it's a lot of energy for Black women in hip hop
Yes.
on a lot of levels. Do you think that this is a positive movement right now for Black women, a moment for Black women right now in hip hop? Do you think it's a positive moment? Or is it something that could be dangerous if we don't watch it?
Well, I agree with what you just said. It is a great time for women in hip hop because, like, we are thriving. Like, it used to just be a few. Now it's so many, and there's so many super talented, lyrical, dope women in hip hop right now. You know, but then there's that other side, like you said. If you want to listen to the other stuff, there's something for everybody. So I guess to answer your question, after hearing your perspective, this is where I'm at right now.
I like it. I like it.
That's fine.
Why not? Tony, what do you think?
Positive is a strong word. Because positive has implications. And
Right.
I wouldn't say it's positive, but I also wouldn't say the world we live in is positive. We live in a time where it's dangerous just to be a woman.
Yes.
And this is
Good
not
for
just
that.
in the US, this is in countries around the world. And the gender wars are bubbling and buzzing, and I think it's worsening the situation and the sense of safety for women. And it's crazy. And so, to a certain extent, I'm all for freedom of speech and self-expression, but I'm also really big into responsibility. And how do we talk about it with love, though?
Yes.
And I think what happened before is that there was no love. There was no patience, there was no acceptance, there was no tolerance, just judgment.
That's okay. That's okay. And how we communicate. Come on, jump on in.
So, thank you for your explanation and for highlighting that, because I think there's a difference, right? You spoke, Roxanne, about the business of hip hop,
Right.
positioning women right now, and I think that's why it's a positive time right now, creating that platform for women to have that space. But we also have a responsibility, as you shared. If you have that pathway in order to create the business and you have figured it out, you have to create the space for someone else and pull someone else up. And we see that in particular spaces, depending on the artist. Sometimes you see that with Beyonce, with Chloe, and the other young lady that she works with. That's why I think it's a positive time right now for that. But we have a responsibility. Everybody has to participate in that. And the question is, are they all participating? But for those that do, they are creating a space for everyone and changing how we see it. So that's why I think it's positive.
I love it.
Yeah.
Evie,
Is it a positive time for women in hip hop? I think I can say yes to an extent. I agree with what everyone said about this topic because I'm just grateful it is a topic. I'm grateful that there are more women that we can see in hip hop that are making music and doing the business. I don't like to think of music and art as just business, but in 2024, the most significant part of art and music seems to be the business of it. And women are thriving in the business aspect, but for what reasons? Because they're marketable. Why are they marketable? Because what do people like to consume? Images of sex, images of partying, images of clubs, and all these different things. So there is a certain marketability when it comes to women, specifically in rap, that we see them outdoing men right now. But is that a positive? Is it that the most positive image that we can have? Or is it just one singular image of many images that we do have? Right. And what is being fed to us to consume more often than what's not? And I do think it's a particular type of image, and it's subjective whether you like that or whether you don't. But I do think there's a little bit of singularity in what we're being fed and what is making money and who is successful. And there is a different definition of success for everyone, but I think we all can agree on what constitutes as success for a rapper, an artist, especially a female rapper in 2024. So to me, it's a little complicated, but I do agree that there is more space for women in the ecosystem of hip hop, not just music, because we have more women in media who are writing about the rappers and music. I remember when I was coming into media, I had way more examples of people to look for, and now younger women look at me as someone to model their media careers after, particularly as it pertains to covering music, covering hip hop. And I think that's a positive. So I think the ecosystem is changing for the better, but we have to get the business right, and we have to get the art right, because it's cultural canon, it's not just business.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. I want to take a quick liberty, because what you said is so important. When we think about how media consumes hip hop and then process Black women through the media's lens, right? Let's talk about all of the ways that the media or the larger society looks at Black women through a hip hop lens. Let's talk about colorism. Let's talk about ageism. Let's talk about sexism. All of these different elements. And if you can, give an anecdote, a small story about how this has possibly impacted you. An image of Black women through the media, Black women in hip hop through the media, and how it's maybe negatively, tell me negatively and positively. Because I want us to get into the nooks and crannies. And it's great, but there are issues there that we should address. Shantae.
Well, for me, I would have to start all the way at the beginning of my career. The beginning of my career, Roxanne Shantae, straight out of the group home, freestylist, incredible MC, not patting myself on the back, but just telling you about Roxanne Shantae.
Let's go.
But Roxanne Shantae was also brown-skinned girl, wild bushy hair, slanted eyes, all of the great things that everybody wants today. Yes. But back then, that wasn't really the look that everybody was going for. Right. See, now, they're buying my bushy hair by the bundles.
Yes.
They're drawing their eyes to make them look like this. They're tanning to get this complexion. They're trying to figure out how to make this melanin magic create now. Right. But when I started in the industry, I remember becoming Roxanne. And I remember UTFO feeling like, look at Roxanne Shantae. She's brown skinned, she's real hood. Her hair is not straight, because I couldn't straighten it. It just won't straighten, it just wouldn't. I tried dippity-doo, that just dippity did it. You know? So I remember that, but I also remember being raised in a household where my mom made sure that she reinforced everything about me and made it beautiful. Like your eyes, your color, your this, your that. So going into hip hop, my mom was just the best for what I was getting ready to deal with in hip hop. So we're talking about colorism now. They said there's no way the girl Roxanne that they could be going after would look like her. So we're gonna get a light-skinned girl. So they came up with who they wanted to call the real Roxanne. So they said, yeah, that's Roxanne Shantae, and she can rhyme and she can battle and she's really good, but we're gonna hit you with the real Roxanne because she's a light-skinned girl and this is who they would go after. But that wasn't even good enough. So then they fired the light-skinned girl and went and got a Spanish girl and made her the real Roxanne. And I remember going back to my mom and saying like, Ma, look, like they got a light-skinned girl and now they have a Spanish girl, and my mother was like, well, don't worry about it, child, because if they go get a white one, this hip-hop thing is over. You ain't even got to worry about that. There won't be no rhymes bust, there won't be no beats, no, don't worry about that. It's not, so I experienced that. And I remember walking into places and feeling like, wow, am I not good enough?
Yeah.
So then that turned Roxanne Shante into this MC that no one wanted to see coming. Because I realized this is not about looks. This is not about being a pretty girl. This is about me being a great MC.
And make no mistake, you are pretty.
Well, thank you, sweetie. Oh, no, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. And the thing about it was now I became this MC that I wanted to battle everyone because now I don't want this spot. I want all the spots.
Shantae.
So when I walk in a place and somebody is rhyming, if you take too long, I unplug it. You're taking too long because it's my turn. So they would see me coming, and I think I created what they considered to be that angry female MC, but I wasn't angry. It's just over-talented and overlooked.
Shantae,
So I had to overcompensate.
You gotta tell us the story. I heard the story from folk that were there about you beating somebody at a World Supremacy, and Curtis Blow. Shout out to Curtis Blow because we love Curtis Blow, but we know what he did. Can you tell the folk the story, please?
Somebody's in the audience like, no, tell us. Okay, so now Roxanne Shante is going through the city and she's battling everyone, and it's gotten to the point now where literally my family members are looking for battles because we was battling for money. So now my family members is looking for flyers because they like, listen, now I can get me a washing machine off of this. And I can get me some new linoleum because, I come from that era, not wooden floors, straight linoleum, so, and as time went on, they wouldn't let me do any more street battles. They would say, the little girl with the braces, don't let her in. Literally. I would come to the door and they would be like, open your mouth. Wow. No, you can't battle. Because that's what I was doing to the entire city. So now, when it comes time to go into the hip hop business, everyone's looking for record deals. I didn't care anything about a record deal. My first record was a freestyle. I did that while I was doing the laundry. It didn't make me no difference. I didn't think about being no rapper. I wanted to be an attorney. I didn't care about anything else. That's what I was focused on. In my mind from when I was little, like, this is what I'm gonna do with myself, but this hip hop thing is bringing in money. They wouldn't even give me a record deal in New York City. My first record label was in Philadelphia called Pop Art Records. Big shout out to Philly, Pop Art, brotherly love. The main thing about it was they were willing to accept me. So now I make Roxanne's Revenge. They have this thing called World Supremacy. So I sit back. Funny name now that we think about it, but that's what it was called. And it meant that you were the greatest MC in the world. They would give you a belt. They would give you some money. And I really didn't care about the belt. I was thinking about the money.
Right.
In my mind, and I'm telling you the story so that this way you'll know exactly what happened. So in my mind, I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna win this money for World Supremacy. I'm going to Beefsteak Charlie's. Because Beefsteak Charlie's was a big deal. Like, I'm jumping up from Tad's, going past Sizzlers, going to Beefsteak Charlie's with this money. And this is on my mind. Like, I'm going to the hotel to go and do this rhyme thing, but I'm thinking, like, okay, let's hurry up and get this out the way, because I'm going to Beefsteak Charlie's. I'm going to get me a real steak today. And we go in there, and when I look up on the board, and this is how powerful we are as black women, and sometimes we don't even know it. We don't even see the signs of it. I look on the board, and I see Roxanne Shante versus this one, Roxanne Shante versus that one, Roxanne Shante versus this one, Roxanne Shante versus that one. So I'm saying to myself, does anybody battle anyone else? Because I'm only 15 years old. And these are I'm looking at the names, and the names of these MCs are the greatest MCs to me in the world. And I felt in my heart like, damn, I'm gonna hate to do this to them. But I wanna go to Beefsteak Charlie's. But I wanna go to Beefsteak Charlie's. So I was like, okay, so that one's gonna take that amount of time, this amount of time, okay, I'm gonna make it. We get all the way down to the last two. Now, I've been rhyming all day long. And they've been coming at me left and right. They done said everything they could possibly think of, from put your mouth on this, do that, but everything that they could possibly think of. And I'm still standing. Last two MCs. So I remember one of the MCs going over and saying, what does it take for her to lose? Because she's been getting 9s and 10s all day.
Across the board.
So everybody else was like, she's not gonna lose. You're looking at the world's best right there. She's not gonna lose. So me, I'm drinking water, getting ready for the next victim. Like, all right, well, let me just go ahead and get this out the way. And we did the rhyme, and we went back and forth. Everybody's cheering. Everybody's like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Beefsteak Charlie, this is it. I could taste the steak. Everybody's turning over their numbers. So this judge says, looking at everybody's thing, what does it take for her to lose? They said, man, she couldn't lose unless somebody gave her a 4. Like, if you look at all the numbers, when it adds up, a 4. There's no way she's gonna get a 4. He turned his card around and gave me a 4. So that was the first time I realized that this is not about who's the best, that there's some politics behind this. So everybody's patting my back. Oh, no, you won. Still today, people like, no, you won that. You know, I still get people that say, look, I listened to it on air. I was just watching it on YouTube. You won that. And I just took that loss. And I fell out of love with hip hop. I said, okay, look, and I don't have no secrets about me. Roxanne Shante is Roxanne Shante. For those of you who happen to be living here in Brooklyn, I was in Hegeman Girls Group Home. I was in Bushwick Girls Group Home. I was a booster, all of that. So I feel like, okay, you know what? I don't want to do this because this is not a level playing ground. This is not fair. So years went by. Years. Everybody's like, yo, you know why Roxanne Shante? And I was like, nah, that's not for me. There's no loyalty in that. This is not good for me at all. So years go on, and I'm married, and I want to say, let's give it 30 years that went by. So I'm married, I'm with my husband, we're on the red carpet, and we see MC number 4. Now, I'm married to a retired boxer. Yeah, it's something about a wide neck and a broad back, but that's another show. That's another show. But, so my husband says, hey, ain't that such and such? And I said, yeah. He's like, no, I want to ask him. I said, babe, not right now. Like, we on the red carpet, like, people are filming, like, we taking pictures. I don't come out too often, like, they're never going to invite me out again if you do that. He said, nah, I need to know. He said, because that changed your whole life. That changed the whole life of hip hop. That changed the way females are seen in hip hop today. Just from that one decision, from that number 4. He says, so I need to know. So let me ask the brother. So, you know, the brother sees, you know, he sees us and he starts to try to like tip a little bit away. And I'm trying to help him tip away. And my husband, like, you know, like, kind of like, you know, puts his arm on him like, yo, brother, let me ask you a question. He said, why'd you do that? He didn't say, why'd I do what? Because he knew what it was. He didn't say, what are you talking about? Yeah. He said, let me explain it to you. And then I'm gonna let everybody else talk, but let me just explain it to you what he said. He said, the reason why Roxanne Shante had to lose that day and could not be considered the best in the world, could not be a 15-year-old brown-skinned girl from the group home, no parents' support, out here trying to figure out her way in the world. She could not be the best in the world when it came to hip-hop because they just started getting record deals. They just started being able to get in a room. And they felt like no one would respect hip-hop if the best in the world was a black girl. So, because of that, I thought about it. I reached out to him, I gave him a hug, and I hugged him really tight. And the reason why I did that is because if I had to take that loss that day for hip hop to be what it is today, then it wasn't a loss.
Amen.
It is what black women have always been doing. We
Sacrifice.
sacrifice. And so that's why Roxanne Shante is, you know, happy and good and can smile, and radio show, 7 million listeners per day, movie that's been watched over 80 million times.
80 million times.
80 million times.
80
And
million
your baby, okay, 80 million times. So I can sit back and say, everything happens when it's supposed to happen.
Yes.
So I may not have been considered the best then, and I may not have won that day, but I'm winning now.
Amen. I love it.
And that's hip hop.
You guys, this is the time where if you have questions, we're gonna invite you down to the mic, so because we only got a half an hour left, y'all. We moving through. But if you got a question, I see y'all popping up. Come on down, and we're gonna take your questions, directed to this person that you would like, the sister that you would like to answer. And isn't that powerful? Thank you, Shante.
Thank you.
Some people call me Shani. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello, beautiful ladies.
Hello.
So excited to be here. So my question was for Shantae, and what's funny is I feel like you kind of answered it by what you just said, but my question was it ever difficult as a black woman to be taken seriously in this business? And you kind of answered already.
Yeah.
With that story.
But I'm sure that when you look at the different, you know, the different aspects that everybody represents up here, like, have you found it to be difficult?
Yes. But a lot of people have paved the way for me as far as media, journalism, and writing. There's so many black women in journalism and media that came about in the 90s and 2000s. So I felt like I had a lot of representation, even visually. Someone who looks like you looks like me. You feel me? I had so many representations image-wise. I didn't have a lot of representation identity-wise, because I am Nigerian American. I was born and raised in New York. I grew up in the Bronx. But, there's a lot of people. Okay, yeah. So I had a lot of people who looked like me and a lot of people doing what I set out to do. But when you get any semblance of visibility as a black woman, that comes with so much vitriol.
Yes.
No matter what you do, you could be writing something that is so generative for all of us, and you get the most backlash online, or, you know, from people's followings and fans, from artists themselves, from media institutions as a whole. You're beefing with institutions, not even people at this point. I've dealt with that. So there are difficult moments, but honestly, you still here, I'm still here.
Right.
Stacey, I want you to jump in and answer that also.
Well, I came in, I started out my career as a songwriter, you know, so I never thought I wanted to be an artist, you know what I mean? It was easier for me to hide in the bag. I was always, you know, on the plus size, and so I really hid for a long time, you know what I mean? And before Lizzo, there was Missy Elliott, you know, who eventually lost weight. There was Kelly Price, who eventually lost weight. But they were actively artists. So I chose to be the songwriter because I didn't want that type of scrutiny. So I guess we're calling it body positivity now. So yeah. So I felt very comfortable being in a dark studio writing for stars, and y'all go sing it, and, you know. But
Come on, Chex.
that was another thing. But you know, God is calling me to the forefront, and I had to get comfortable in my skin, you know, and really. So I didn't really deal with the black woman thing. I was always an overweight girl, so people, I guess, felt, especially men, they felt very comfortable with me. You know what I mean? So I had a different relationship with men. It wasn't like, oh, I want to, you know, it wasn't a sexual thing. It was more like, oh, she reminds me of my sister or my auntie or my mom. I'm very nurturing. You know what I mean? I take them on because I grew up with a little brother, so with my male relationships are very loving. You know what I mean? You might think we go together, but it's not that. You know what I mean? So my relationships, they trust me with, you know, I know certain information, and it's just like, I never got preyed on or anything like that during my career. I actually had it pretty smooth, you know, as a songwriter, because didn't nobody know who I was. And even when I did first put out my music, I was like, I don't want nobody to see who I am. I don't want nobody to see what I look like. You know, I was super, you know, just in my head about it, but I'm outside. Like
It's interesting, and we're gonna take the next question, but it's important to say that we take on these roles in hip hop because they keep us safe. Like for me, like Tony just sees me in a dress, but never see me in a dress. I'm always in sweats and jeans, and one day we actually analyzed it. I like being everybody's little sister because I don't have to worry about them touching me or saying things to me. And I was old and grown when folk was like, Nikki is grown. Like, no one ever looked at me that way, and it kept me safe. And I see that even in your, no one, they
didn't look at me
your
like
cousin,
that.
your
And
sister.
What I thought was like a prison, my body, was actually a protective shell. You know what I mean? God put me in this thing. He was like, no, try her, don't try her. You know what I mean? Like, and it never was that. I used to be like, dang, so I'm not, what's up? Like, you know, Shawty had too much respect, and I was in the music business, so it's like, you know, yeah, I have a whole nother story to tell, but go ahead.
Brother?
Oh, yes, thank you. I was just wanting to ask, not to anyone in particular, but I guess I could leave it to the whole group, with this recent hip-hop beef that's been going on. How do you feel about particularly straight male MCs addressing misogynoir within hip-hop at this day and age, and how do you feel about the way they're doing it?
Tony.
Why me?
You know why you. Come on.
Okay, repeat the question.
Yes. How do you feel about straight male MCs addressing misogynoir within hip-hop nowadays, and how do you feel about the way they're addressing it?
Who, in the battle?
Yeah.
Yeah, or just in hip-hop in general.
Well, I think the journalist asked me earlier, said ideally, wouldn't it be lovely if the audience was filled with hip-hop heads who were men? Coming to be inspired, uplifted, and more informed. And I was like, wouldn't that be a nice little dream, fantasy to happen? And it didn't happen like he and Darrell and I were dreaming. It didn't happen like that. I said, wouldn't it be nice? Men have to be the speakers at this point. Women have said all we can say. They have to participate, and then some of them have to lead. The Kendricks of the world.
Yes.
The Drakes of the world have to start to speak up. They have mothers, they have sisters, some of them have wives, some of them have daughters, that they have to begin to speak up. And I know I had, let's say 2019, I had a project in Washington, D.C. called the Freestyle Union. I was the creator. I've done a lot of pioneering hip hop work.
Yes.
And, but pioneer, the root word of pioneer is peon. And there'll be a female peon, because then they pee on your cornflakes 20 times more. And that's what happened a lot, where I was just such and such's girlfriend. Or I was scrutinized for every single thing that I said would happen. Or my ground rules were, the way that thing kind of folded up, it was almost, it's a movie scene. It was a movie scene, the way that I was set up to be put down and to fail. And there was a group of males who, they wanted me to fail so bad that they were destructive to the organization, even though it hurt themselves. And I'm not the only woman like that. I've been to 50 countries around the world, and I've heard these stories from women who speak different languages, from women all over the country. Like, I honestly, I'm not unique, I'm just vocal. Right? I was a trained speaker and a competitive speaker, very articulate. You know, I'm not afraid to be on a panel next to KRS One of all people. Like, panels were sports for me. It was like a sport. But I know a lot of women like me who were underground, doing the work, behind the scenes, securing the venue, talking to the promoter, making sure the flyer was done, making sure security was there. hip hop would not be without women. Just would not be. But as Shantae was saying, that we sacrifice. We sacrifice for the good of the whole. We give it all away. Because many of us, I was trained to do that. Be nice, Tony. Be a good girl. They need help, Tony. I feel like I'm in recovery right now from all of the giving, and my bank account reflects all of the giving. Not enough receiving, right? But yeah, I think it's men's turn.
It's interesting. This is the same story that Ella Baker has. The Civil Rights Movement has.
Yes.
The Black Panthers have.
Yes.
There's just always the women sacrificing. And it's no shame because it's our community.
Yeah.
Mary Church Toro,
Yeah.
she said that, I'm going to help white women get their vote. I'm going to help black men get their vote, knowing that black women won't get the vote until way later.
Yeah.
So we have to figure this out. Sister.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you all, because this is, I'm getting all the feels, and I love it. To each and every one of you. I'm going to try to just keep this as brief as I can to get this out, but I used to be a ghostwriter for several hip-hop music video directors in the era of, I guess, the golden era of hip-hop. And I had to write those, the treatments for the video vixens. So I was the one to say, yeah, the light glistens on her skin as she comes out, blah, 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 blah. And then it came to a point where the Lord was telling me basically, like, stop. And I had to stop. I was raising a little girl. And when I think about this, this whole conversation, I'm thinking back to Venus Hottentot. And I'm thinking about how they put her on display for her voluptuousness and her black beauty, for spectacle, for coins. And I'm thinking now today, are we doing the same thing? Are we self-pimping? Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's how much of that are we responsible for? Because like you says, working in this male-dominated business in hip-hop, behind the scenes doing the writing of the images y'all looking at, I had to be like, oh my God, I remember being in the room with Kanye, and I wore my baseball cap and my hoops and my big baggy jeans and my hoodie, because that was me hiding in plain sight to be safe. I'd rather be the homegirl, the B girl, the gangster bitch, you know what I'm saying? I'd rather be that, because then that means that you're not gonna objectify me to a certain extent where I feel like I'm not safe, that I might be, you ran a train on me, gang rape, whatever it was. And the fact that we have to deal in that duality as women it's really frustrating. So my question, I guess, to you all is that, yes, I can appreciate the women that are rapping and rhyming today, the empowerment they have to ownership, entrepreneurs, but at what cost? Is it cash over content? Because we can sell cigarettes and vape, but we're killing each other, we're giving each other lung cancer, but we're making that coin. So what is it, what kind of empowerment is it if we're still doing the same thing they did to us? We're still giving TNA. We're still doing this. And what is that teaching our little girls? That's my little girl. I raised she's 27 now, and thank God she's okay, but.
Anybody want to jump in? And we only got 20 minutes left. Less than that. Anybody jump in?
I bought your book, Tony. I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
I think that's such a great question because, I think it just harkens back to that conversation of liberation versus exploitation as it pertains to this sort of, I don't even want to use the word hypersexualized imagery and content in music. I'm not even saying hypersexualized as a negative. I'm just saying it as a matter of fact that there is a lot of sexual imagery in American pop culture, not even in just hip hop. But right now, the biggest female rappers in the world, I would say, fall into that category of sexual liberation versus sexual exploitation. And I think we passed that moment where we're trying to reckon with whether women rapping about sex was liberation, because women have rapped about sex for a long time, but it's how they're doing it and what images they're representing. I'm not beholden to the idea of, representation politics as an end-all be-all per se, but I think when it comes to women rappers, they get held to a different standard than men when we talk about sex and exploitation and liberation. But also, women always get put on this binary pedestal. You're either this hypersexualized image or you're desexualized.
Yep.
And when you're talking about these two different types of artists, the woman who is more quote unquote modest and not sexually threatening is always heralded up against the woman who is hypersexual, but not at the expense of, you know, her art.
That's it.
Actually at the expense of her art, because her art is not being engaged, her image is. And it's only being used as a pawn in this game of comparing these two different women, but you're not engaging either of their art. You're not engaging the woman who's hypersexual, and you're not engaging the woman who isn't. So I don't know who wins when we're talking about that type of comparison of liberation versus modesty versus exploitation, because at the end of the day, who is dictating what the rules are? It's still men. Whose gaze is informing and dictating what we view? It's still men.
I think that's a great pivot to a question for the council member. The reality is American culture is a certain way, right? And so when we think about misogynoir and the way American culture on whole, this goes in many spaces, right? What do you think will remedy it? Is it legislation? Is it moral codes? Is it family structure? Is it, what do you think are the remedies? And do we legislate that, or is that something cultural?
I think it's everything that you just mentioned. Legislation can change, sometimes it could change behavior. But it all starts at home. It starts within your community. I often tell young people, education starts at home first. Whatever it is that you need to learn about principles and morals and understanding of particular things, that has to start at home. We can't have the expectation for that stuff to start in school or if you are religious, like at church. It has to start at home. Legislation is put in to change behavior. And part of that, I remember in 2018, they had something called the STOP Act, and that was anti-sexual harassment policy. It was a package of bills. Actually, former Councilmember Lori Cumbo was one of the leaders on this bill, and it was to change sexual harassment in the workplace. It was happening mostly in government spaces. It was happening mostly with unions. And they had to put in these bills to change behavior within the workspace to protect people at work. So we see that happen often, but once you leave work, what happens when you get back into your community? So it's also the culture that plays a major role, and your community leaders have to play a role in ensuring that we're doing a better job at enforcing whatever bills are being put in and whatever the community needs, that we're stopping those behaviors.
So we only have,
Just to chime in on what you said, it is all behavioral, but when we analyze the word misogyny, which misogynoir is basically what's happening in our culture, but the same thing, it's hate and discrimination towards women.
Right.
So that's the definition of misogyny.
Right.
So how do you cure it? It's like we would have to, you know what I mean, go back, because even in hip hop, a lot of these artists come from troubled situations, single mother homes. You know what I mean? And you, as the son who becomes this famous rapper or this big entrepreneur or whatever, you have to deal with the fact that you look like the man that either left her, beating her, raped her, whatever the situation was, and now she's raising you with that same energy. And so that is what creates a misogynistic man. When you beat on your son, you don't talk to the king in him. You know what I mean? That's what creates this type of behavior. We would have to go back. You know what I mean? So it's not, I don't think it's something curable necessarily. It's just something that we need to talk about so that we can get to the root, because everything has an origin.
there are origins, and there, thank you, clap for that. And this is the last question, because we're going to have to wrap it up. And I would like Shantae or Tony to jump in on this. There was a time where you couldn't curse and say certain things on the radio, right? And I remember when Uncle Luke went to the Supreme Court, right, for his right to say, shake that, right? And then after that, the 90s, 91, 92, 93, then Snoop dropped it. It just was different. They used to censor BBD, can't trust a big They censored that. But then when Snoop dropped Doggy Style, all you heard was the B word everywhere. But that was the legislation. You had to respect, that's the law of the land.
Right.
Is that part of this right here? Is that this explosion of misogynoir that we see so openly in our culture? Because before, it was there. Justice was there. LaToya, we know the songs. But it was something you heard on a mixtape versus on the radio.
Right.
Y'all want to talk about that really quickly? And thank you all. You've been a wonderful audience.
Yes, absolutely. For me, when it comes to profanity, I mean, anyone that listens to my radio show today knows that I still use a lot of profanity. I grew up with it in my household. I remember the first time I heard my grandmother cuss out the neighbor. I thought she was singing to her. And I couldn't wait to sing that song when I got older. It was like the way she said it, the way she moved with it. I said, that is it for me. I don't want to know no other song but that. And I was blessed enough to be placed in a career where I was able to express myself. Now, let me explain. Using profanity and explicit language, mainly for describing something, is different than directing it at a person.
Right.
Sometimes, some words you may need to use, that's the only way, and does not come from a lack of vocabulary, because I'm extremely articulate. I'm a great orator, so I can switch my vocabulary should I need to. But on some days, I just have to use a different dictionary to get my point across. And what I think happened is that other people wanted to have that freedom, because people were still going to sing those songs. They still were going to do it, but this is what happened. They realized that they were going to be able to get more money, and they were going to be able to make more money if they allowed those words to be played, because now the shock value's out of it and the money value is in. See, that's with everything. See, they took the shock value out of sex. Now the money value is in. The things everybody would cover their eyes and cover their ears for, they no longer cover their eyes and cover their ears. Because even when it comes to hip hop, and I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna let it go. Hip hop, as far as its creativity, took a huge loss when everyone started listening with their eyes. When they started thinking that just because they look good, they sound good. And I think that's where everything crumbled and crashed.
Thank you. You got 5 minutes for the last question. This will be you, my sister.
Well, since I am a representative of Ladies of Hip Hop, and I want to kind of bring it back to the body and the movement. I'm also a dance professor. So I would like the panel, if you can tell me one of your favorite dance moves, because how I describe hip hop for me, it was through the movement and the dancing with my homegirls on the corner. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Shout out to the 414. I live in Brooklyn now. But when it comes to how I got into hip hop and how hip hop resonated with me, a child of the 90s, was through the dancing first. Yes, for me, popping and busting it and doing a butterfly and getting popped in the back of my neck was a signifier and a cultural thing for me of like, oh, this is mine, but also there are other things at play. So if you could share, if you embodied a dance move from hip-hop, from your childhood, and how did that make you feel?
Well, for me, baby, it'd have been a WAP all day long. Because I think with the WAP, you were able to clap.
Yep.
Right. And if your back hurt, you could still WAP now. And I think the WAP also played a part in like you could WAP in the chair and everybody knew you still liked it if you stood up and you WAP, and then you could WAP with someone. So for me, it would be the WAP. Yeah, I think Roxanne, I think I'm a WAPper.
EVA.
Oh, that's a great question because people don't talk about how dance is an integral part of the pillars of hip hop. So I would say, well, when I was growing up, like mid 2000s, the Get Light movement. I would say the Get Light movement. I wish.
Demonstrate a little bit.
No, I can't get light. I can't get light. I could never get in my head. I could get light.
Oh yeah, okay.
In my head.
She was lightheaded.
I was like, the Get Light movement was definitely like that, that uptown, mid 2000s.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
It was definitely giving a Harlem Shake, That had me in chokehold for a minute. But just in general, it's the New York bop. You know what I'm saying? Like how we bop, how we listen to music. Sometimes I watch other people from other places, and I'm like, are we listening to the same song? Because that's not the bop. For this particular one, I don't like the way you bopping. So, so for me, just being from New York, we just bop to music differently. You know what I mean? So yeah.
What about you, Tony? What dance?
No, I came from the Bay Area in Cali, but I was determined to get to New York since I was 9 years old.
Yes.
Right? This is why it's hard for me to leave, because I had a contract with myself, and I told my mama, you wrong. I would be in New York. She's like, you're not going to be nowhere. But anyway, it was this one here. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, the
Bismarcky.
Yeah.
The Bismarck. Yeah. The Biz. Council member. We want to know what you was dancing.
I was gonna say the WAP too, because anybody could do the WAP, but I would say doing the butt. Because there was a sense of like community, everybody knew what to do.
I mean, there's twerking now.
It was fun. Yeah.
Oh no, the butt is always going to be the butt.
Right. Yes.
And people like me should just never do it. What a beautiful way to end tonight. Because when we think about the butt of all songs, right? What a black woman thing to do, right? I remember the first time they named everybody's name except for mine. And that, you know why? Because it wasn't me. They wanted somebody else. Lisa, Jenny got a good everybody else. I want everybody just to say one last thing to our crowd. Just, if we can go back round robin and just give their final remarks.
I would say if we could leave here with anything, I think it would be to engage all of the parts of hip hop culture outside of the music, because there's so many rich texts and books and critical analysis essays that have been written since hip hop was born. So many women scholars and writers and journalists and songwriters and producers and directors who contributed to the cultural canon. And I feel like if we all read more and engage with all of that on top of the music, we could better understand the music and we can change the music as well. So I would say let's all read and engage all of the different hip-hop cultural productions.
I would say do something kind for a stranger at least once a day. And if not once a day, make it a minimum of once a week. It will longin your life.
I would say to watch our words and, because words have such an impact, especially in song, and it's like a spell, you know what I mean? Like, when you're speaking, speak with intent, like speak if it's kind, true, or necessary. You know what I mean? That we do a lot of unnecessary talking. I feel like we should, guide our tongue.
The next time you want to complain about an artist or complain about music, I want you to go find an artist that you like, that you appreciate, and that you love, and share it.
Yes.
And I want you to be open to new music. There's so much dope hip-hop being made right now. There's good music in all genres being made right now. There's dope hip-hop being made in other countries.
Yes.
And technology allows us to listen and to even go there, to experience it. So there's no need for us to be stuck in this negative cesspool of what such and such is doing. If we all exercise our power to share, we could change the narrative just by simply share something dope every week with your people. And if you're not on socials, text them. text an artist you found.
Yeah. We came tonight because we wanted to talk about confronting misogyny, misogynoir, gender-based violence, violence against women, and a plethora of things in hip-hop. But I want you to think about the spaces that you come from, right? We all love hip-hop. Culture motivates us. It's a part of our DNA. But I want you to think about what change you could make based off the information that you heard here today in your personal space, in your communities, and in your environments. Be the change that you want to see. We hear from all the ladies on the panel today about what we could do different in hip hop, but what could we do different in our world and in our communities, in New York City or whatever space you're in. So use the information today to change your world.
What? What?
In my book, Wisdom of the Cipher, available on Amazon,
Yes.
I give you inspiration to be able to organize and facilitate your own ciphers. Ciphers are just song circles. They're just jam sessions. And culturally, we've been doing that for years. And somewhere we stopped, right? And if you see the young people, if you see folks at a wedding reception, family holidays, get into the circle. And don't let your age stop you from rapping with them.
That's right.
They love it.
This has been an amazing night. And what I love most is that when I look out into the audience, I see some of our sexy seniors, and I see some of our young people. And it is amazing to see that maybe 4 different generations could come together to talk about how Black women are mistreated and often hated in our culture. And now we have information that we can go out into the world and show, look, I just seen 6 fabulous Black women who are amazing. And there's one in your bedroom, there's one in your household, there's one in the kitchen, there's one in the boardroom. Everywhere you go, there's a dynamic Black woman, and you need to salute her and show her that you love her. That will take away some of the misogynoir that we see. Y'all, we want to thank BRIC for hosting these Be Heard town hall meetings where we could come together as family, talk out some of our issues, and really get to the bottom of it. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more conversations to be had around this subject. I want you all to have a wonderful day and make sure that you be heard in whatever community you're in. We also want to shout out to our table sponsors, Ladies of Hip Hop, shout out to y'all. And also to the Brooklyn Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, sorority incorporated.